I was going through a difficult phase in my life. Every day I would come back from work, make myself a cup of tea, turn on the TV, and then start watching Friends. On other days, I would watch The Office. There have been days where I would just fall asleep on the couch while watching these shows. Not because they were boring, but because they helped me relax. Both these shows have helped me, and I know that I'm not the only person who can say this. I discovered Friends back in 2004, and The Office came much later in my life, maybe in 2018-19. Friends and The Office are both incredible shows. They are classics, they are juggernauts. There are people who like Friends and find The Office cringe. There are people who like The Office but find Friends overrated. And then there are people like me who like them both. At this point, I've seen both these shows maybe 6, 7 times. So I think I'm in a good position to do an unbiased analysis and comparison of both these shows and try and understand which one's better. In order to determine which show is better, let's follow a scientific approach and compare these shows on different metrics like humor, rewatchability, commercial success, cultural impact, character development, fan theories, and the major criticisms of the shows. I will award points to both of these shows on each of these metrics and then do a final tally towards the end to see which show wins. Let's start with the first metric on our list, humor and style of comedy. At their core, The Office and Friends are both about relationships, but they approach them in vastly different ways. While Friends is about chosen family, The Office is about accidental family. Friends revolves around six close knit friends: Ross, Rachel, Monica, Chandler, Joey, and Phoebe, navigating life, love, and careers in New York City, who actively choose to be in each other's lives. They are a chosen family offering unwavering support and navigating life's challenges together. It's a classic sitcom with laugh tracks, witty one liners, and feel good moments. The show thrives on the chemistry between its characters. Each character has a distinct comedic style. Chandler's sarcastic one liners, Joey's lovable stupidity, Phoebe's eccentric weirdness, Ross's nerdy awkwardness, Rachel's spoiled girl turned independent woman charm, and Monica's obsessive control freak tendencies. The show also thrives on physical comedy. Whether it's Ross struggling to pivot a couch up the stairs, Joey wearing all of Chandler's clothes, or Monica with a turkey on her head. The Office is a different beast. It's a mockumentary style sitcom set in the mundane world of Dunder Mifflin, a small town paper company. In The Office, the characters are thrown together by circumstance. Their workplace is their primary shared space, and their relationships often develop out of necessity and shared experiences. It is an accidental family. Led by the awkward yet endearing Michael Scott, the show finds humor in everyday workplace absurdities. Unlike Friends, it has no laugh track, relying instead on dry humor, awkward silences, and character driven comedy. Michael's cringeworthy attempts at being hip and politically incorrect, Jim's pranks on Dwight's over the top seriousness about everything from bears to martial arts, Jim and Pam's subtle yet hilarious reactions to workplace absurdities, Kevin's cluelessness, and the ridiculous office meetings make for comedy gold. Both shows have a unique brand of humor that caters to different tastes. But I would say that The Office is more intelligent comedy and is more layered and subtle, while Friends is more slapstick. And if you simply remove the laugh track from Friends, I don't think you will find most of the jokes funny. So, on the humor and style of comedy front, The Office wins. Okay, now let's talk about the rewatchability of the two shows. So, why do people rewatch these shows? Friends is a time capsule. The Office is an evergreen mirror of modern day work life. There are two major reasons why people watch Friends: nostalgia and comfort. Friends taps into the 90s nostalgia, which keeps it popular across generations. While relatable in its themes of friendship and relationships, Friends often leans towards escapism. The characters' lives, despite their struggles, are often depicted with a certain level of comfort and glamour. Their emotional processing, while present, is generally geared towards maintaining the light-hearted tone of a sitcom. For example, Ross's tragedy of having three divorces is still portrayed in a very light comedic manner. Also, the warm lighting, cozy apartments, and coffee shop setting create a comforting visual aesthetic. Psychologists suggest that Friends is good for stress relief. Friends is a traditional sitcom, meaning most episodes are self contained, with simple plots that don't require deep focus. This makes it easy to jump into any episode at any time without worrying about continuity. The show provides a sense of familiarity, making it a go to for background noise or stress relief. Fans already know the jokes, but they still feel enjoyable, similar to hearing a favorite song repeatedly. Okay, now why do people rewatch The Office? Well, there are two main reasons: relatability and new discoveries. The Office, with its mockumentary style, often feels more psychologically realistic. The characters' flaws, insecurities, and awkward interactions are laid bare. The humor derives from situations that viewers might recognize from their own lives. It feels timeless and workplace universal. Most people have worked in an office setting. Office politics, cringeworthy meetings, awkward bosses all remain relatable. Another major reason why people rewatch The Office is for new discoveries and the layered storytelling of the show. The Office is full of hidden jokes, background gags, and subtle reactions that viewers might miss the first time. They only reveal once you rewatch the show. The Office is more rewarding for dedicated rewatches, as new jokes and details emerge each time. For example, you might have missed out on this, where Creed is mouthing, "That's what she said," and some of the stuff written on Pam's New Year resolution board. So The Office wins again on the rewatchability metric. Also, let me know which joke in The Office you missed out in the first watch. Okay, now let's see which show has been more commercially successful. When comparing commercial success, it is essential to consider multiple metrics like revenue generated through original broadcast, syndication revenue, viewership numbers, streaming rights, and the global footprint of the shows. Friends was originally aired on NBC from 1994 to 2004. The show's finale in 2004 attracted nearly 53 million viewers and is ranked in the top 5 most watched season finales in US television history. In the later seasons, each cast member was paid $1 million per episode, a TV milestone at the time. The Office started when Friends ended. It was aired on NBC from 2005 to 2013. The show had a modest cast, and the cast wasn't even sure if they would have the second season. But it did, and it gained popularity over time. The final viewership was close to 5.6 million towards the end of the broadcast in 2013, which was a tenth of that of Friends. Steve Carell's salary grew from $87,000 per episode early on to $300,000 by season 7, with supporting cast members earning even less. So Friends wins in the original broadcast era. Later, Warner Brothers bought the syndication rights for Friends for $1 billion. The cast members reportedly continue to earn $20 million each per year from syndication deals. The Office was also highly valuable in syndication, especially on channels like Comedy Central, but was not as globally syndicated as Friends. It was finally during the streaming era that The Office started winning. In 2020, The Office was the most watched show in the US, beating Friends. In 2021, NBC Universal paid $500 million to bring it to its streaming platform Peacock for 5 years. But Friends was a global phenomenon, with instantly recognizable cast, fashion icons, and catchphrases. It was dubbed and subtitled in multiple languages, even in countries where The Office was never aired. The Office is popular, but it has way less international reach than Friends. So on the commercial success front, we can say that Friends is an easy winner. Okay, now let's see which show has had the biggest cultural impact. Syndicated in over 100 countries, Friends became one of the most recognizable shows in television history. For many non-English speakers, it was a gateway into Western pop culture and even the English language. It was not just a sitcom, it was also an English tutor in disguise. A lot of people from non-English speaking countries watched the show just to learn English. Friends became a defining show of the 90s. The show captured the 20-something experience of friendship, dating, and career anxiety in a rapidly modernizing world. From the fashion to the New York coffee shop culture, it shaped a generation. Central Park became a real-life tourist destination, with replica cafes popping up in countries like China and India. Rachel's haircut became a global sensation. It was one of the most requested haircuts in the 1990s, worn by millions globally. Its theme song, "I'll Be There For You" by The Remembrance, was a chart-topping hit and still evokes strong nostalgia. And Friends sparked a wave of ensemble cast sitcoms like How I Met Your Mother. When the show ended in 2004, many viewers had developed an emotional attachment to the characters, and it felt almost like a heartbreak to them. On the other hand, The Office became an internet era icon. The Office gained a second life through streaming and memes. The Office is arguably the most meme TV show ever. Characters like Michael Scott, Jim, and Dwight dominate GIFs, TikToks, and reaction images. From "That's What She Said" to "No God Please No" reaction GIF, it has cemented itself in internet culture. The show's humor and awkwardness perfectly fit with modern internet-savvy audiences, especially millennials and Gen Z. And it influenced a new wave of mockumentary comedies like Parks and Recreation and Modern Family. But overall, we can say that Friends does have an upper hand on the cultural impact. Both shows are now tied at 2 each. But which show had better character development? Let's find out. When we look at Friends, the characters stay largely the same throughout the series. While there are arcs like Rachel's transformation from spoiled rich girl to a successful businesswoman, Chandler maturing from being a commitment phobe to a loving husband, most of them remain predictable. Ross and Rachel's on again, off again relationship feels repetitive, and Joey, despite his charm, remains the same clueless womanizer throughout. One of the Office's greatest strengths is character evolution. Michael Scott starts as an insensitive, clueless boss but gradually becomes more self aware and even lovable. His farewell episode is one of the most emotional moments in sitcom history. It's also worth noting that Michael was weird and cringe, but he was a great salesman. Jim and Pam evolved from a will they, won't they romance to a real, flawed couple dealing with adult challenges. Dwight transitions from a weirdo to a genuinely respected leader by the end of the series. That is, from being the assistant to the regional manager to the regional manager. Andy Bernard, originally introduced as an insecure hothead, grows into a great manager and ultimately ends up pursuing his passion for music. This progression gives The Office an emotional depth that Friends sometimes lacks. So, The Office wins here in the character development category. Coming to fan theories, both shows have generated wild and clever fan theories. One of the reasons why The Office has countless fan theories is because of the presence of the documentary crew. Questions arise like who's filming, who's editing, and why are these moments included? Also, the backstory of most of the characters is not revealed. Characters like Creed, Toby, Jan, and Robert California are so weird or mysterious that fans love to theorize about their backstories. The most famous theory is that of Toby being the Stanton Strangler. Another theory suggests that Kevin is actually quite smart and plays dumb so that people don't suspect him for embezzling money. In one of the episodes, he does mention that he does something similar to insider trading. It's worth noting that he is a great drummer and plays for a band named Scrantonicity, which is a police cover band, and he also happens to be the lead singer. Playing drums and singing at the same time requires him to be a musical savant. Additionally, he is good at poker, and in the basketball episode in the first season, you can see him shooting all the shots. One of the most famous fan theories of Friends is that the entire show is Phoebe's hallucination. Phoebe is homeless and watching the group through a coffee shop window. Everything is an elaborate fantasy of a life she wishes she had. But overall, The Office has had more fan theories, so The Office wins by a big margin here. By the way, here's a picture of Ross and Jan from the episode, the one with the stoned guy. It is here in this picture that the world of Friends and The Office meet. Now let's look at the major criticisms of the shows. Both Friends and The Office are beloved, but neither is free from criticism. One of the most consistent criticisms of Friends is the show's overwhelming whiteness, especially considering it was set in the diverse backdrop of New York City. The only diversity you see is in Ross's girlfriends. Julie was Asian, Charlie was black, and his ex-wife Carol was a lesbian. The show also had instances of homophobia and transphobia. Chandler's transgender dad was often the butt of jokes, and there are frequent jokes about Chandler being mistaken for being gay. There's also fat shaming, and Monica's past as an overweight teenager was a recurring joke throughout the series. Joey is depicted as a hypersexual womanizer, rarely held accountable for inappropriate behavior. Also, the characters live in massive Manhattan apartments, despite having inconsistent or low paying jobs for much of the show. This is unrealistic, and critics argue that this distorts real life expectations for young adults. Okay, now let's talk about The Office. The biggest criticism of the show is Michael Scott's character, who often says things that are sexist, racist, or inappropriate. Another criticism of the show is that after Michael's departure, the quality of the show declined, and the last two seasons were not at the same level as the first seven. New characters like Nellie and Robert California were not quite fan favorites. Some characters' personalities became exaggerated. For example, Kevin became unrealistically dumb, and then they totally destroyed Andy's character. Some viewers found the manufactured conflict in Jim and Pam's relationship in later seasons to be forced and uncharacteristic. Another thing to note is that Jim frequently pranks Dwight at work, which borders on bullying. The Office fares better on diversity and inclusion and has characters like Kelly, Stanley, and Oscar. But it has fat shaming and has been criticized for jokes that punch down, particularly concerning the weights of characters like Phyllis, Stanley, and Kevin. While the criticisms are valid, it is important to understand that both shows are products of their time, and many criticisms stem from changing social awareness rather than outright malice. Modern audiences are more attuned to issues like representation, gender roles, and political correctness, which casts a new lens on classic content. So we can call it a draw as far as criticisms are concerned. And now, here's the final verdict. After tallying all the points, The Office wins. Even though I like both the shows, personally I like The Office a little bit more. Both shows are legendary in their own right, and their staying power proves that great comedy never goes out of style. Whether you're laughing at Chandler's sarcasm or Michael Scott's cluelessness, both sitcoms offer something truly special. So, which show do you prefer? Let the debate continue in the comments. My name is Ajay, and this is Live and Curious. A lot of research and effort goes into making these videos, so please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more such videos and for stories from around the world. You may also consider becoming a member of the Live and Curious community, which will give you access to the exclusive perks. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.